Hi, everyone. Welcome back to another episode of Z Podway. We are so happy you are here. Today, we are speaking to a star of the Broadway show K-pop, and she is the M in Artemis. It's Mina Lin. Yay! Anyway, Kate recently made her Broadway debut playing Miyeon in K-pop on Broadway. She is an 18-year-old Korean and Taiwanese actress who's been working in the industry for 5 years, so she's obviously not a newbie to this. And she even deferred her acceptance to USC's musical theater program to be in K-pop, and she was the youngest cast member out of everyone. So, Kate, it is so nice to finally meet you, and how are you today?
I'm great. How are you?
I'm doing amazing, obviously, because I get to talk to you. And I mean, it's so exciting. This is our first K-pop episode of kind of maybe our little mini series. So super exciting. And first of all, I mean, you just did a workshop with the incredibly talented James Coe. So I just want, maybe you want to talk about maybe what that was like and kind of update on if there will be any more like that in the future. So if anyone listening wants to come join you and dance, they can.
Yeah, that yesterday was amazing. It was the first time I've ever choreographed and done a collaboration with somebody, and I'm glad it was James. We kind of just got together for like an hour or two, pulled some things together, and just had a little bit of fun. It was the first time I've ever taught something that was my level to other people, because normally I teach smaller ones, and it was an amazing experience, and we're definitely going to do it more.
Mhm. Yeah, no, I mean,
Yeah.
I would totally go if I was able to. And maybe if you ever come back to LA, then I'll totally be there if it's in the next year or so. Um, and
Oh
so
yeah.
now I think we have to go all the way back to the beginning of your career. I know that you began training as a triple threat performer when you were very young. And so when did you know you wanted to pursue performing as a career?
Um, so kind of like all dancers, I have ADHD. And it was really bad at that time. I was doing all the normal Asian stuff, learning piano, trying violin, doing taekwondo, doing golf, tennis, that kind of stuff. And I could never focus. I always jumped from one thing to the other. So there was a moment where my grandma saw me just staring at myself in the mirror during a taekwondo class. I got kicked out because I wasn't paying attention. I was just looking at the mirror, and she's like, "Why not put her in a dance class? It
Hmm.
has a mirror, it gets her to move, and it's with music." So I started taking dance around 5, 6 years old. From then on, I around 8 years old, after I started competing in dance, I was like, you know what? I can't dance forever. I don't know why my 8-year-old self was like, I want to do more.
You're very mature
Yeah.
for your age.
Yeah. I'm like, I can't dance forever. I'm gonna get old. And so I'm just like, so my mom's a singer. So I was just like, Mom, I want to learn how to sing. She's like, okay. And I'm like, I want to learn how to act. Okay. So yeah, that's kind of how I got into it. With the industry, as a dancer, I wanted to be a Laker girl. So that one line that I have in K-pop,
Uh-huh.
that was true
Yeah.
at that time. And I did want to be a Laker girl, which was like my first step into the industry, at least as a dancer. So I signed with an agency, started auditioning, did some small Nickelodeon thing, which was like a one-liner. And I'm like, you know what? I like being the one with the lines. So I
Mm,
started taking more acting classes and was like, I want to pursue acting as like another part of my career. So
mhm.
that's when it all kind of meshed together.
Yeah, I mean, obviously, you're very skilled in dancing, singing, and acting. I mean, you've got everything. And obviously, you started very young, so it's kind of like, you're able to do kind of go into anything. And I know you also have like tumbling experience, which like I'm sure this makes you kind of you kind of know and aware of like your body and kind of things that you can do with it, which I think is just like really, really cool that you're just trying to expand, I guess your toolbox of talents. Um, just so that, you can be in this industry where now you have to be able to do everything and do everything well, which is something I think that you do very well. And then going with K-pop, I mean, I know you started working on it, I think because I was talking to Joey Parnes, and he
Yeah.
was saying that you began when like, doing the workshops when you were 15? So that was like,
Yes.
obviously a few years ago. So can you just how did you first get involved? When did you first hear about it? Because for me, I didn't really hear anything about the show until I met Helen Park this summer
Mhm.
when I was at Broadway Con. And then it just kind of like
Oh.
the knowledge went from there of kind of the show and trying to figure it out. But obviously for you, you were involved with it very early on. So can you just talk about that a little?
No, yeah, I wouldn't have known about it. A lot of people don't know this story. I wouldn't have known about it if it weren't for Jinwoo.
Mm.
Um, he plays Junie in the show, the very really good-looking K-drama like dude.
Yes.
Yeah. Um, I was already prepping for like small auditions in the theater world, and at that time my dream role was Kim in Miss Saigon.
Mm,
So I posted a video of me singing "I'd Give My Life for You,"
mhm.
and I was like 14 around this time, and because Chinu was a part of the touring cast of Miss Saigon at that time,
Yeah, yeah.
he follows the hashtag, and
Mhm.
because I hashtagged it, he saw it. He DM'd me and he was like, "Have you ever thought of auditioning for K-pop?" I'm like, "I'm sorry, my Korean's terrible and I don't live in Korea." He's like, "No, no, no, no. It's a Broadway show." And I'm like, "This is a scam. Like, this is such a scam."
Oh my gosh.
So I showed it to my mom and she was just like, "You know what? Maybe this is a thing." So my mom looked it up on Playbill and it
Uh-huh.
was true. They were looking for people to audition. And I'm like, this is real? Like a Broadway show about K-pop?
You're like, "You're
Okay.
lying."
I know. I'm like, this is such a scam. This can't be real. And uh Tinu was like, why don't you come see Miss Saigon in Second Strip Theater
Mhm.
and bring your mom and I can bring you backstage and we could talk about it. And I'm like, okay, this guy knows what he's doing. Okay. We'll go. So I meet him in person. I give him my information. He passes it on to Helen, and then Helen passes it on to the rest of the creatives. And then from there, I did like a self tape, did a callback in LA because Helen just happened to be in California. And
Mhm.
then I did my second callback in New York. And then from there, I waited a couple months before they were like gonna offer me the job.
Mhm.
So
I
yeah, it was a
that's
very long process.
that's amazing. I mean, just the fact that you posting your video and then, like
Yeah.
saying it is kind of it means that it's all meant to be. I mean, for me especially, like I obviously very present on social media and always posting. Well, like now recently I've been trying to, promote myself because I used to not be a part of like my brand at all, being Broadway underscore corner, I guess. And so like it's kind of nice to hear those kinds of things because you really don't know in this industry like where you're gonna get jobs or how someone's gonna notice you. It could be from a Instagram video, like, it just
Yeah.
depends, and it's not a linear path, so that's just a really, really cool story, and I mean, amazing, obviously, that you got involved and got to work on it, especially being so young and getting to, do something that's probably very close to your heart, especially, having Korean heritage and all that kinda stuff. It's, like, something that you could only really dream of, and you never think it's gonna
Yes.
come true. And what was your reaction to booking the show? I mean, I've seen videos of people where like their mom will be recording them like bawling on the floor. Like, what was kind of your little story that you might have?
I wish my mom had the idea to film it, but she
Oh
didn't.
no.
Yeah, I got the call from my manager saying, so they called us and they want to give you an offer. Like they normally say we want to give them the offer, but wait until we send you the actual contract.
Mhm.
So he was like, they want to give you the offer, and I'm like, wait, for real? And he's like, yeah, I'm for real. And I'm like, oh my gosh. I didn't cry, but like at the same time, I'm like, am I ready though to
Mhm.
like move to New York and like do all of this? So it was more of like um I don't know, it's just a lot in my head, especially at 15 years old.
Yeah, I mean,
But
yeah, obviously that must have meant that you were like a sophomore, right, in high school?
yeah.
Yeah. Oh my goodness. I can't even imagine like what you were feeling as a sophomore, even though that was only like, a few years ago for both of
Yeah.
us. Um, And I mean, that's just amazing that, at such a young age, you were so, confident in taking charge of like your career and making sure that, you're skilled enough to do it. So why not just start? I mean, in my opinion, it's like super, super cool. And for you, once you finally obviously made it to Broadway this year, do you have like a favorite number that you performed and a favorite costume that you wore? Because obviously the costumes were incredible. And they
Oh,
don't have to match.
sure.
The number and the costumes can
Okay.
be really different. So whatever you feel.
Huh. My favorite number is probably This Is My Korea. It's so soulful and it's just everyone on stage at once.
Mhm.
And it kind of just brings the light onto the stage as like the opening.
Yeah.
My favorite costume. Uh I would say my concert outfit, like the pink leotard.
Mhm.
That was the most flattering. And it was just, I don't know, because all of us had a unique type of costume, it made us stand out individually, but still like we still looked like a group.
Yeah, I think I
Yeah.
really liked that aspect of the costuming was like it's obviously very cohesive, but also, you like highlights your uniqueness and that, you don't always see that, especially with such a big ensemble and the fact that everyone got to like show their personality as individual performers, I think is super cool. Um, and for you, obviously, this is your first Broadway experience being in a show, it's your Broadway debut, and obviously, it's very intimidating, obviously. I mean, it's Broadway, but also you're like obviously you're ready. I mean, with all your training and just like everything you've, shown in your recent work, I think it's just like super cool. Was there anything that once you got there, you were like, "Oh, I had no idea I would be feeling this or this would be a part of it at all." I mean, it can really be anything.
No, yeah. I never pictured myself in like Broadway. I did theater as like, oh, it's dancing, singing, and acting, the things that I've been working on all together.
Mhm.
So picturing myself on Broadway, I'm like, I did not see myself here. And from what people have told me is that in companies or in casts,
Mhm.
they have like little cliques or they have like their group of friends. But when with K-pop, we were just all one big family. Like
Mhm.
no matter what happened, we would always go together. Like
Oh, yeah.
after rehearsals, all of us would go in a huge group of like 20 and then like shift over to a restaurant. Like that's it was always just everybody. No one isolated, no one separated.
Yeah.
And I'm like, I've never felt this much love and this much acceptance in one perimeter,
Mhm.
especially in just like in like the entire company.
Yeah.
So it was very different, especially in TV and film where you do one thing and then you jump to the next.
Yeah.
It's
Mhm.
like this one, because we've been working on it together for so long, it's like it's not something we can just like finish and then like leave.
Yeah.
So
And I
yeah.
think you talking about kind of being a very cohesive group, I do have to say that I'm pretty sure that also had to do with everyone being Asian or
Yeah.
Asian American. Because I think it's like for me, I'm not super, experienced in terms of performing. Like I started literally in high school with singing and, trying to get into acting and dancing more and, obviously auditioning for BFA programs. But like I've, done a few community shows where I just didn't feel, comfortable as much as maybe some other people. And it's just that kind of barrier is not broken where you're either the only Asian person in the room or you're just like, one of the younger people or just that feeling of not quite belonging yet is obviously a very big thing even I'm sure on Broadway with companies that aren't the company of K-pop. And so I love getting to hear about how much you guys love to hang out with each other. I mean, I keep seeing your guys like everyone's Instagram stories like Patrick and Kim hanging out or like you and Amy and James hanging out. Obviously it's really evident that you guys are a very tight-knit family now, and that's just like
Yeah.
the best thing that you could ever want for someone. I think especially being Asian American, it's just the disconnect is so isolating at times where people don't quite get what you've been through. And just having the unspoken, I'm sure, connection with everyone in the cast, especially being having those experiences, I hope that was like, a dream come true. And I really hope I can be in a show or do something that can have that similar feeling because I think that's the thing that we want most, especially being people of color and being in that kind of group. Yeah.
Yeah, definitely. There were moments, as you mentioned, that age sometimes gets in the way. And
Yeah.
me being the youngest, obviously, we all know that through equity, it's and like through the government, it's required for anyone under 18 to have 3 hours of school, whether
Mhm.
they have work or whether they don't. I didn't have work. So
Oh.
I was always sent up to the upper level in New 42nd in New 42. And I was always up there just for 3 hours, maybe doing a little bit of work,
Mhm.
finishing because I was homeschooled.
Yeah,
And
yeah.
then I come back down and I'm like, what did I miss?
Oh.
And then there were times where everybody
Oh.
was able to connect during those times. And then I was always missing out. And I'm
Mhm.
like, is this gonna be how is this how it's gonna be when we move to Broadway?
Yeah.
Like, am I going to have this kind of disconnect? And this is what I was feeling through 2019 and 2021 throughout those 2 workshops that I was a part of. And I'm
Mhm.
like, I feel like I'm missing out a lot, especially being underaged. And
Yeah.
obviously everybody likes to go out, have a couple drinks and stuff like that, go to norebang, which is karaoke, right?
Mhm.
And there are some places that don't allow underage people to go. And I'm like, okay, so there are some times where I need to step back and separate. And
Yeah.
I've had those isolation feelings, especially as the youngest. But for this year, for the rehearsal time throughout opening on Broadway, after like I turned 18 and I'm like, I'm free now. I get to do all of this stuff. I'm in New York. I'm
Yeah.
practically by myself. I get to explore a little bit more and spend more time with the cast. And there were times where I did have to trail off because I was not able to go in somewhere
Yeah.
or I didn't feel comfortable doing something. But most of the time, throughout that time, the cast has been so loving, and they're like, "Are you okay with doing this? Like, we can walk you home just to make sure you're okay if
Oh.
you don't feel comfortable." And I'm like, "This makes me feel so nice."
Yeah,
Like
yeah, I'm sure. That's great. I mean, I totally get the whole underage thing. I know, people love to go out, and if you're not, obviously 21 or older, it's kind of like you feel that left behindness, and you're like, I want to go, but I can't, obviously legally. But
Right.
I'm glad that the cast, is very supportive of you because obviously, I mean, we're very young, but I think people treat us like we're older than we are. People tell me I look
Yes.
like 22 like all the time. Um, like I think
I don't
even
know if that's a
some of the
compliment
I
or
don't know. I don't maybe because teenagers are immature. Who knows? But like I think even some of the K-pop crew are like, "You're only 17? Like, or what? Are you kidding?" Or I totally understand that, but I mean, it's great that they'd offer to walk you home or just at least consider your feelings because I think that's, very important, especially for young people who are working, because that's always a very different experience than when you're an adult, whether you have to do school or you have to do this or that or have rules or have a guardian over you. Like when you're,
right.
younger than 16, it's like, all those little things that you don't quite think about, especially for being on Broadway. And so I'm glad that like, you got to be 18 when you were actually doing Broadway
Yes.
for those few months and getting to enjoy all that kind of stuff. And for you, did you have any backstage rituals, like either before the show or like a high five with a dresser or like a certain hug or a certain moment where you just like wave to somebody that, you kind of cultivated over the few months that you guys were on Broadway?
Oh, yes, we had multiple. So there were a lot of birthdays during previews.
Mhm.
So we would always gather in the stairwell, which is like, I don't know, it's a pretty long stairwell. And we would just sing happy birthday. We would get a cake from Paris Baguette, and we
Mm.
would like sit in the SM room after the show. But this would always be before. And then my roommates or dressing roommates were Amy, Julia, and Julie.
Mhm.
So Julia and Amy have the same vocal teacher, so they would do the same vocal warm up. And
Oh.
our walls are so thin that when they start their warm up, the people that were next to us were Kevin, Josh, and Jiho. They started copying the warm up.
Oh my gosh.
It's so annoying. And then Zach would always be either in the shower or doing yoga in his room and also copying the warm up. That would kind of be our little ritual. But yeah.
Yeah, no, that's super fun. I mean, especially like having those thin walls, you're kind of just all in each other's space all the time and getting to
Yeah.
like hear everyone, especially when there's like 20 singers in the same, hallway. I'm sure that can get kind of loud, but also very fun. And to now
Oh
I think
yeah.
talk a little bit about, closing. Just I want to know, obviously I was there and got to witness it and got to be in the room, which is I had to wait 4 hours in the line for cancellation tickets, just so that I could get in.
Oh,
And I don't know how many people got in
right.
after me, but I got my ticket like half hour before, and I was like so thankful. And I'm
Oh,
for obviously for me, like
wow.
emotions were, high and I was very sad, but I'm sure, it was a lot for you as well. And can you talk about just like how you were feeling? It was a bittersweet day, I think, for everybody, but I think it's also filled with a lot of joy and love and happiness. And just what did it feel like to be performing and to me, what felt like an actual K-pop concert by the end? Like it did not feel like Broadway anymore. It felt like we had been transported somewhere else. So just kind
Oh.
of how are you feeling that day? And do you have any other thoughts just like about the closing? I don't know, whatever you are comfortable with.
No, yeah. The day of closing, I think personally, I already got all of my like confusing feelings out. I'm like, now what do I do? Like all of that stuff.
Hmm.
At that point, I was just like, you know what? If we if we do this now, if we end now, we can always come back. Like everyone's always saying that K-pop is done with their chapter on Broadway,
Hmm.
but we're not completely done
No,
done.
not at all. Not at
So I'm just like, you know what? It's not like any of us are dying.
all.
Like we're still here. We still
Yeah.
know and like it's not like we can't put on a show of our own later on. And so at that point, I'm just like, you know what? This is, if there is any time to do it, now is the time. Because we've already been told we've already gone through everything and I was just ready to do it one more time.
Hmm.
By that time, I'm like, I was tearing up a little bit during the opening, being like, this is gonna be the last time I'm gonna perform this dance or this song on this stage. But after like throughout the entire show, none of us felt hurt. None of us felt angry anymore. And I'm pretty sure after the closing, everybody felt more a
Yeah.
little bit.
Yeah.
But at that exact moment, everything was just like, you know what, the time is now. Let's just enjoy this now.
Yeah.
So it was amazing. I didn't feel sad, I didn't feel angry. I was just like, this is we made history and that's all that matters. We made our mark and now it's time for somebody else to come and make their mark and then it'll keep on going on and on.
And
Yeah.
especially what you said about, bringing it back and doing shows everywhere. I've been saying, I think I told Major this, like, bring it to LA, but like in the next year so that I'll still be here. Or Vegas, or just do. I said it on, my Instagram, just like K-pop should go wherever it wants to go because it's good enough to. Everyone in this entire cast is a triple threat. I'm not exactly sure about like Jinu, but we'll talk about that later. But it's just like the show is so important to a lot of people now, especially after conversations have been, had about what it means to everyone. And I think especially with the album coming out, it's like it's a time to celebrate. Obviously, there's still a lot of weird emotions about things that were said or things that were done that maybe could have been done differently next time. But we will have a next time, and that's what's
Yes.
important. So, and hopefully there can be like, I know people have been talking about wanting to have like an album release concert or a party or something. something, like at 54 below or whatever anyone wants to do, and just doing something like that just to kind of commemorate the amazing thing that you've done. And especially having the swings on the album, like I've been telling everyone in my family, everyone that I can talk to is saying like K-pop has done everything that I've been wanting on Broadway for so long. Like it's an original
Oh,
story, first of all, and there's representation for me, not just as an Asian American, but specifically also Taiwanese, which is what, you are. And it's filled with a lot of Asian joy. There's nothing about that's not obviously struggle with like wanting to work hard, but it's not the other struggle that we're so used to hearing about. And the swings were on the album. Understudies and swings never get to be on it. So I'm like that in itself is just groundbreaking. And just the fact that this show could accomplish like everything that I've been hoping for the past like 3 years in this pandemic after our little reckoning, it's so amazing, and I'm so happy that this show is able to be that for everyone and just able to be such a source of joy for a lot of people. And there's actually a K-pop super fan group on Instagram where everyone's always talking, and I'm in it. I got added to it.
oh my gosh.
Everyone's talking about like, everything the cast is doing and making sure to update everyone on your dance classes or anything like that. And just making sure that we keep that joy and trying to like support you guys as much as we can. So thank you.
Oh, that means so much to me, and I bet if you told everybody else, we'd all be bawling on the floor.
I'll have to tell James on Friday. I'll make sure to make him try to make
Yes.
and for you, this is going back to kind of, I guess, your roots as a performer. Like, what is your advice for young Asian American kids who want to pursue performing? Because you've been doing this pretty much your whole life, and I know I've read some other interviews with you. It seems like you're a very hard worker, you're very determined, and you're determined to not let us be put in boxes, especially being Asian. So just what is your advice for the young kids who want to do this for a living?
No, yeah, it's hard. Like, I'm not gonna lie, it's so brutal.
Mhm.
And there are going to be many, many moments where you make it, or like you're right at the rim of it, and then you get dropped right away. And it's gonna hurt. And it's gonna happen multiple, multiple times. And throughout that process, all of it, as long as you know, like by yourself, as long as you yourself know that it's not you, it's the world that you're in, and the path you decided to take. It's not about it's not about how bad you did, or how they may have not liked you, or you made the wrong artistic decision. It's nothing like that. It's just, that's not your moment, that's not your part, that's not your time. But I'm a Christian, so I always say to myself, God knows there's
Mhm.
always a path. And if he takes something away, that just means he's going to give you something so much bigger later on.
Mhm. Yeah, I'm
So,
also Christian, and yeah,
yeah.
I totally believe that things happen for a reason. I recently got rejected from my dream school for, my BFA. It was my early decision school, so I wanted to be, all done and have a path, but obviously, I guess that wasn't exactly the plan that God had for me. And just thank you so much for, reiterating that and helping me, just kind of like think about all those stuff, especially being Asian, because it's like you go to an audition, you don't get it, and someone who will always get the role seems to always get it, and you're like, is it me? What am I doing wrong? I'm just as good as
Yeah.
them, maybe if not, even better. And I think Abraham said, you have to work like twice as hard, four times as hard as everyone else just to get the same recognition. And also like we have to work now so that it can be easier for them later, because it's tough and it really is just like, just heartbreaking. Just when you hear about all these experiences that kids have gone through, and it's like they shouldn't have to be worrying about all that kind of stuff right now.
Yeah.
Just be worrying about being a little kid.
Yes. Our time is coming, and I feel like it's very, very soon.
Yeah.
And I K-pop was just one part of paving the way. And then more BIPOC stories are coming out, and I'm always going to be there to support and put in my work and effort.
Mhm.
But yeah, it's something that we can't just breeze over. It's not something that could be like, "Oh, no, it's okay. Like, I'm fine." No, you have to feel the feelings. It's you're gonna have to feel the hurt in order for you to keep on going.
Yeah. Yeah. No, that's totally exactly, what everyone needs to hear right now. And I wanted to ask, like, for you, I don't know how connected you are specifically to your Taiwanese heritage, but how did it feel to be representing Taiwanese Americans like on stage? Because I know for me, it's very tough trying to find people that are Taiwanese because there aren't a whole lot of us out there that actually are in the performing arts, especially. So once, I was kind of doing more research into the show and about the people in it, and I saw like Korean and Taiwanese. I was like, oh my goodness. And so I like told my mom, told my grandma who like were, proud of being Taiwanese. And so like it changed everything for me and allowed me to see myself in a more specific way, not just being, Asian. Cause like I'm not Korean at all. So it's like I don't have the specific Korean tied to the show, but just being Asian has been enough for me, I think, especially.
Right.
So like what did it feel like for you? I don't know if anyone else has reached out to you about, the fact that you're representing Taiwanese Americans, but just how did it feel, I guess?
One person actually did reach out to me. She took class yesterday. It was amazing. And in my own way, I'm like always trying to point out that I am both.
Mhm.
I'm half and half because a lot of people would either just subject me to Korean
Yeah.
or just being Asian American. And a lot of people forget that I'm Taiwanese.
Mhm.
And when I was doing the show, Zach is Chinese, James is Chinese, Eddie's Chinese. And I'm
Mhm.
like, okay, that's
Well,
amazing.
and Julia's Filipino, right? I think.
Julia Filipino,
Yeah,
yes.
yeah, yeah.
And I'm like, this is great. We're all a mix of different things. We're not just Korean. And I'm like, okay, I can relate to that. But at the same time, when I think about, I'm like, there aren't many Taiwanese artists out there, or at least not many Taiwanese artists are being recognized.
Yeah, no.
And when I'm like, I can speak Mandarin or I can speak Korean, most people are like, oh, Korean, you're
Mhm.
Korean. I'm like, no, I'm also Taiwanese. So
Yeah.
when people come up to me, they're like, you guys are the Chinese portion of the show, right? They're like, yeah. And I'm like, I'm not Chinese, I'm Taiwanese, but people would just subject me to only one. And I'm
Mhm.
like, I'm very proud of my Taiwanese and Korean heritage, but there are a bunch of times where I'm like, I'm not just Korean. I do have another side of me that I do want to represent. And a lot
Yeah.
of people know that.
Yeah, no, I think that's great, especially, being, I guess, mixed. I specifically can't relate to that, but I know, it is like a different thing for most people where you feel like you're not more of each in a way, and people only see you as either one or the other, or maybe none at all. And so, yeah, that's super great that you're able to just kind of talk about that and make sure, I mean, that's amazing that also you can speak Mandarin because I cannot. I wish I could so bad, like, you have no idea, but and
It
just,
was a choice.
yeah, also showing, people who can speak different languages, especially having so much Korean in the show. It's just that's what things are meant to be. And you don't have to understand the language to get what you're trying to say because I can't understand a single word of Korean except for maybe one, but I understand the feeling of what the story is being. And I think that's the most important thing. Can you talk about your experience auditioning for BFA programs? Obviously, because I'm in the middle of that, and that's extremely scary.
Oh
And
yeah.
I'm currently, in the middle of getting all those pre-screen passes and scheduling auditions for like February and January. And it's really hard to stay positive. Obviously, K-pop and getting to talk to you and doing things like this has really helped boost my morale, but it's really tough. And I'm sure for you, since you're already working and you are doing this at the same, like doing BFA auditions at the exact same time, like, how did you stay sane, especially since, there was the prospect of K-pop coming to Broadway and like sometimes it's hard to keep your eye on everything at once, but I guess in a way, how did you do it?
Oh yeah, there was a lot of things going on during my audition process. So, you know how a lot of people say for theater majors, you have to apply for like 20 to 23 schools.
Yeah.
That is so not true. You can if you have that many schools you feel like you wanna go to.
Yeah.
I personally did not, because it didn't make any sense to me to go to a school that's not in the East Coast or not based in LA. It
Yeah.
just doesn't make sense because why would you do that when you can be in the actual environment?
I totally get that. Yeah.
Yeah, and I also had the contract for K-pop already while I was auditioning. I was
Mm.
just like because COVID was going on and everything, and our pre-Broadway run in DC got canceled, we're
Yeah.
like I'm just like, "What if Broadway gets held back? Like, I'm gonna miss a year of college," that kinda thing. So I took 7 of my top schools that I wanted to apply for, just did my auditions because I was preparing the same songs for those specific auditions
Mhm.
2 years in advance. I've had the monologues, I got my Shakespeare monologue intact. I went to a couple of teachers just to help me perfect it a little bit, but not too much to where I could be like, "Okay, I don't wanna be completely perfect,"
Yeah.
because if or, like, so over modified to where when these people are watching it or the admissions are watching it, they're like, "What can we teach this girl?"
Yeah.
Like, she's so focused on correcting it herself, what can us as teachers actually teach her? So I'm
Mhm.
just like, "Okay, that makes sense." So I'll just do it to where I feel comfortable. I feel where I feel confident in sending it in. But I think what they mostly look at is your essay, your wild card, and everything that comes before the singing and the acting. And I'm
Mm.
like, okay, I don't want them to see me just as a dancer. I
Yeah.
want them to see me as full triple threat, also just an Asian American girl trying to make it in the industry.
Mhm.
So my essay was very angry.
Oh my god.
It was about how much Asians were so, underrepresented in the industry, and I'm like
Mine's about representation. Yeah.
yes.
Very similar, like I said.
But, the process wasn't too complicated because I've been doing not pre-screens, but, self-tapes for auditions multiple times, so it wasn't completely foreign to me.
Yeah.
It was more like, okay, I'm gonna do my research. I'm going to look up the schools that I want to apply for, look up their specific requirements for each audition. I did I had like 3 different video versions of every song, every monologue, and I'm like, okay, this school looks for this, so I'm gonna use
Mm.
this version of the monologue.
No,
And
that's
yeah, I kind of just did it throughout the span of 1 to 2 weeks. I took my time with it, started early, and if I felt like I wanted to redo something, I redid it.
mhm.
But I didn't think so much about it because I was like, at the end of the day, whether I get into the school or not, I'm like, at least I know that I sent in what I felt comfortable
Mhm.
with, and if that school didn't like it, then that school's not for me.
Yeah. Yeah.
But yeah.
Yeah, for my early decision one, that I did not, get accepted to, unfortunately. In my interview, I talked a lot about wanting to especially feel safe in myself as an Asian performer because there aren't many of us, especially in these programs. And there's, a lot of people who, just from my perspective, seem very like similar types and just not who we are as performers, especially having a unique perspective on really everything. And I told them, I was talking to a woman who's white. So I'm like, I hope that I was coming across, with something that I really believe in because that's like the most important thing to me is not just performing for myself, but performing for everyone else that might, see me or especially for me, seeing you and everyone in the show is just like the inspiration that kind of clicks like when you do things like that and getting to do that. And so like for me, I'm hoping, to be in a program where, it's like probably hopefully a small program where I just feel appreciated, especially with a unique perspective and being able to not feel like I'm out of place. Cause I know that that's what we have to experience a lot. And so it's like you just hope that, your years in school would be very positive. So Yeah, thank
Yeah.
you so much for sharing about that. I know it's helped me a lot right now. Just because I've applied to about 10 schools and two of them are currently out of the running, but it's okay.
Okay.
I'm gonna keep going and I'm going to,
Yes.
hopefully be, you know, have a place to go next year, hopefully in Manhattan. Yeah, and I know you've been very open about talking about that, wanting to be treated as a triple threat. You're not just a dancer, you're an incredible singer. If you haven't already, like, if people listening, if you haven't checked out Kate's like YouTube or Instagram, like covers of songs, like, I mean, she's incredible. I mean, I love the videos that you did with like, I think it was the songs from Six. Like, 'cause
Oh yeah.
those are so hard and just like you make it seem so easy. And it's just like you can't, don't put Kate in a box. You can't because it's impossible. I mean, I think for you, it's like you're very skilled in everything. And even in your acting, you're very natural. And like, I think especially in K-pop, like you got to kind of show that really, strong side of you with your little one-liners or just like things like that. And especially, just being in something that is so means so much to you. And like, what are your hopes, I guess, for your career moving forward? Because I think I've said this before, but like from my perspective, it seems like you've gotten all these tools. Obviously, you're gonna, go to college and have that whole experience getting that training, but it's kind of like you've already got most of it. So it's like you're able to kind of pursue whatever you would want to do and accomplish whatever you want to because you've worked hard enough to be in a position where you should be treated as such and treated, better than people who don't work as hard as you because I think being determined and having that work ethic is so important, especially being performers and doing those self tapes and being well rehearsed, but not, not too rehearsed, but just
Right.
having that preparation. Like, I don't know, I guess obviously it seems like you can do everything, but what is like a dream thing that you would want to do?
Well, wow, that's a great question. It's not like in my mindset, it's not I want something specifically. I do want to return back to LA
Mhm.
because I'm not built for New York. It's cold. I don't like walking. I would much rather drive. And I like California weather, obviously. Um, but like film and television is something that I started in film and television, and especially in theater, I was always told that my acting was too minimal or my acting is a little bit too soft because
Mhm.
I was used to training with knowing that the camera's going to be right here. Um,
Mhm.
so I'm really glad I got the experience of doing K-pop so
Yeah.
that I can learn how to still not overact, and still be very true to myself, but also to I don't know, just to let it go in a way where it's not too much, so where it's believable.
Yeah.
And it was great for me to actually be able to play around with it, try it out, try different things every night. Um, but yeah, with what happens next, I don't know, but there's nothing in my brain that says that I'm not gonna be doing something next year.
Mhm.
It's either college, which I have,
Yeah.
or it's might be another job if I book it. And lately I just started teaching more,
Mhm.
and I will be teaching more next week, which is great. Um, and I'm just trying to put myself out there, not as just, like you said, like not as just dancer or not as just the girl who was in K-pop or anything like that. So, but yeah.
Yeah, it's kind of wanting to, build who you are and your, I guess, your reputation of just being a well-rounded performer and person, obviously. And just like, I think anyone who will meet you would just be like, okay, this girl's got like everything that we could possibly want. Like she's good, she's talented. Like what else? We're just gonna cast her now. And just like I hope that everyone that meets you just gets that feeling because I know especially from watching everyone in K-pop, like every single one of you have that And it's so rare, but it's so great that everyone was able to be brought together for a special project. And I mean, I just can't wait for it to keep going. I mean, we'll bring it to LA, we'll bring it to Vegas, and who knows? Maybe they'll have an opening for a swing.
Yes, be
Maybe
ready.
I might not be Korean, but I am Taiwanese, and that's something. So
That is something.
yeah, you really never know, but I'm just so excited for, your future as, being Kate, and also your future of being in K-pop, because that's obviously a very special thing as well. And I'm just so excited to see what's gonna happen in the future for you.
Thank you.
And I think lastly, I think we'll kind of wrap it up, but how can everyone follow you and find you online? Because obviously, you have Instagram, you've been more active on TikTok too, but how
Oh,
can
yeah.
everyone listening just follow you and support you and make sure that we're always up to date with kind of all the stuff that you're doing?
Well, because you asked, every everything is literally all three of my names. Kate Mina Lin. Instagram is kate.mina.lin. TikTok is the same thing. I do have a website, which is my full name, no spaces, no caps.com.
Mhm.
And yeah, everything's just linked there. My YouTube's there, Instagram handle, TikTok handle. I'm now on Twitter, but I don't know how to use Twitter. I'm trying to figure it out.
I've been trying to for years and I still don't get it, but
Right? It's so hard.
yeah, no, it is super weird. It's a funky, weird app that I never use at all. Still when I'm looking up stuff about K-pop.
Ah,
Yeah, anyway, Kate, it was so awesome getting to talk to you today. I'm just so happy for you. I know you've kind of said that you've come to peace kind of with everything that's happened recently, and I'm so glad that you're able to, just take that and kind of heal and kind of just move forward, because you obviously have a very bright future ahead of you. And so it's just so awesome getting to meet you and getting to talk to you, and I hope I'll see you soon. If you come to LA, let me know. I'm 2 hours away.
oh, definitely. Definitely. It was
Yeah,
awesome speaking to you. Thank you so much.
thank you. I'm just blown away by this cast and production, especially you being so close in age to me and just being like, okay, this isn't some far off dream that I need to wait 4 years to do. It's like you can just start now where you are, because I think you're, living proof of that, that dreams do come true and that you can make it happen if you work hard enough. So thank
Yeah.
you.
No, thank you. This was amazing.
Yeah, and I can't wait for everyone else to get to share their thoughts on the show, and get to just like pretty much do the same thing that we're doing here, because I think these are the best kinds of conversations that we can have. So, yay.